Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this time we're gonna look through the lists for the Bloodstorm Proving Grounds event held on Saturday the 13th of April here in the Netherlands, here in Eindhoven. So it's one of the first events of Warhammer the Old World, and it's more of a casual event, I would say, with the most important rule to have fun. So they also encourage you to bring armies that make the game enjoyable for both you and your opponent, or the crazy list you always wanted to try. We are limited to 1500 points of troops. We are going to play on normal board size, and we will play pitched battles from Warhammer the Old World rulebook. So I think this time it's going to be quite a normal tournament in that sense. Then there's some additional restrictions. So there's a 0 to 3 applied limit to any units that are not otherwise restricted by army composition. This mentions units. I personally would have preferred this to also include upgrades, except for standard musician and champion, because in that sense you also limit upgrades like fanatics, which I think would be fine if you just limit it to 3, but who am I? Then modeling painting. Painted armies that have been bought or bought are not eligible to win the award for the player's choice or best army. This is the best painted award. And then if they're unpainted, then they suffer a -1 leadership penalty for the whole event. And they're not allowed to use inspiring presence and hold your ground, so your general's leadership or your battle standard bearers reroll. I think this is a good rule to allow people to bring unpainted models, but to heavily advocate for painted models, because the most competitive players will probably then bring painted armies. So some rules of conduct: basically don't be a person that nobody wants to play against. And then we go to the scoring. So here we have victory points. Here they are scored. If you have a victory, then you get 6 event points. The loser will get 3. And if it's a crushing victory, you'll get 9 event points. So basically, you just want to go for crushing victories all around. We have some partners. So Rage Quit is a Dutch team of game developers. Scars Menu Just Madness is a place where you can get workshops and painting. And you can do commission painting as well. Tabletop Printing Studios is one thing that gives prints, and Deux is a tattoo shop. So if you're interested in one of these, you can also visit those. Then we have the lists. So this is the real meat of the video, I guess. I could have made this bigger way earlier, right? So anyway, we have Empire of Man, we have Iron. So generally what I expect to see, just as a disclaimer, in all the lists is like a big character on a monster, not that much infantry, probably more cavalry, and a lot of some shooting if there is infantry. So with that thought, yeah, I also expect, by the way, every list to have a level 4, because that seems to be the meta, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm gonna have that as a reference to see if lists are extremely powerful in my view, or if they're not. And we'll start with Iron with Empire of Man. So he has a general on the Griffin with the white cloak, so that's a 5-up regen or ward save. Now we have a Wizard Lord level 4 on Illusion, not on a mount though. I think Illusion is generally quite a good lore. People bring it for spectral doppelganger, so you can get 2d6 hits with the weapon that you're using, which in this case would be just strength 3 attacks in combat with the wizard. Or the Mirage spell, where an opposing unit cannot charge, I think. So that might be a reason also to bring this. Otherwise, Iron has a lot of infantry. I personally don't know what the value is of state troops, but yeah, it's Empire, and you should bring this. I mean, this entire list of units is only 500 points together, so it's not even that expensive. Then we have some Outriders, some Flagellants. I am very curious to see how Flagellants will do in this edition of the game. And a Hellblaster Volley Gun with an Engineer. I think this Hellblaster Volley Gun with the Engineer, that is going to be one of the heavy hitters, basically, of the list. Then the rest is more there to support well, the Griffin, the Hellblaster, and the Engineer. I think it's fluff rating. If I'm gonna give all the lists a fluff rating from 0 to 10, then this would be a 7 or an 8, so very fluffy. Then we have Arvid, Empire of Man. He also has an Imperial Griffin General, a level 4 Wizard. He has a BSB on a Demigriff. He has some veteran state troops, some Demigriff Knights, and a steam tank. So basically he swaps out some infantry. I don't know how this got so expensive so quickly, because this is like nearly twice as expensive just for one weapon skill and the Griffin standard. So that ramps up really quickly, apparently. I think, yeah, fluff score 6 maybe, like on the fluffy side, but a bit harder than the previous one. Then we have my list, no comments. No, so my goal was mostly to bring a list that would not be a run over for my opponents, still manageable, and with some counters for gigantic stuff. So the Exalted Champion that I have, his only purpose in life is to just get rid of big monsters, and otherwise it's just stuff. So I have some blocks, I have some small stuff, I have 2 Dragon Ogres, which I quite fancy in this edition, because they're only 70 points. But we'll see how this goes for me. Then we have Bas, the Orcs and Goblin Stripes, the Nomadic Warg. I have no idea about the special rules of these extra army lists, or what they are even called. So I think this is an all-mounted version of Orcs and Goblins. I think it's a very fluffy list, because there's no real big guy on the very big mounts that we consider right now to be quite powerful. There's only a level 2 in Magic, and otherwise it's just Boar Boys. I think Boar Boys can be very good in the game because of the long charge range and the likelihood of outnumbering your opponent. Couple that with the initiative bonus that you get for charging, they are going to strike first quite a lot of times, so they might even perform quite okay. But in terms of fluffiness, I would definitely rate it an 8 or even a 9 as well. Then we have Bram with Orcs and Goblins, well, with Goblins. So we have a General on an Arachnarok Spider, I believe this is the very big one. A Talisman of Protection for that juicy ward save. We have a BSB, I don't know what this big flag does, but let's just get on with it. We have a War Boss. I don't know why there's a War Boss, so that might be a good choice. I have no clue. Then we have basically 2 units of Night Goblins, ones with 3 Fanatics, ones with 2 Fanatics. We have double Squig Harpers, we have double Bolt Throwers, which are excellent for their point cost. So I would rate this one the lowest so far, so like a 4 out of 10 out of fluffiness. I would say this is going to go against a lot of against the heart of a lot of Goblin players, but I would say that this is not a fluffy list, or at least not compared to the other lists that we have seen so far. So I would give it the lowest rating of a 4, but we will probably see some other stuff down the line. Then we have the Kingdom of Britannia Errantry Crusade. So that's a lot of paladins apparently on steeds in knight errant units. So we have a couple of knight errant units. We have some mounted knights of the realm. It's a fully mounted force. I like that there's no shooting support. That might be a bit of a fluffy factor. There's 2 units of Pegasus Knights. Don't know if this is because Pegasus Knights are the best in the army or if it's just a coincidence. I would say 6 out of 10 on the fluffy side, properly, but I have no clue about Bretonnians, to be honest. We have Empire of Men, Dan with the Empire. He has an Imperial Griffin, he has a Captain BSB on a War Horse, he has 2 units of Knights, he has some Demigriffs. This comes close to an all-mounted force, except for the archers and the mortar. Yeah, I would rate this more on the competitive side than on the fluffy side. So I would say a 4 or a 5 out of 10. Probably a 5 out of 10 because I still think it's less of a competitive list than the Orcs and Goblins or the Goblin list. Yeah, I think that's about it. Now Danny with Orcs and Goblins. So we have the level 4. This guy is on foot. We do not have a big spider in characters. We have one unit of goblins with 3 fanatics. We have one unit with 1 fanatic. Some chariots, some war boys, some poor chariot. I think this is just a really fluffy list. Just because it doesn't go extreme in any regard, and it just has a collection of a lot of different stuff. Doesn't really focus on anything, but it just has a lot of very different stuff. So yeah, so I would say 8 out of 10, yeah. Then we go to Emil with Kingdom of Bretonnia with Duke Dinkelberg. He named his character, so that is definitely already a fluff point. We see the combination of a Duke on a Royal Pegasus together with 2 units of Pegasus Knights, so maybe that goes a bit more to the competitive side. But there's still a combination of units of 10 Peasant Bowmen, some small units of Mounted Knights of the Realm, a level 1 Damsel. That is definitely a fluffy choice, I would say. Yeah, so I would I'm really quickly rating all of these lists, but I would say 5 or 6, yeah, 6 out of 10. Then we have High Elves Flores. We have a Prince on a Star Dragon. That is a chunky boy at 1500 points. Then we have a Dragon Mage. I guess that's a mage on a dragon. It's a level 1 only though, so that is not the very tooled up guy, and the Prince is also not very tooled up. I think a Dragon Helm gives you extra armor though, so it is a 2-up armor save. Yeah, I can imagine that there's a lot of commotion about bringing 2 dragons, mostly also because there are points that you lock into 2 characters that will likely not die if you don't want them to die. However, the combat potential of a Dragon Mage, I think it's going to be disappointing. The combat potential of this guy though. I don't know if you should bring a Star Dragon to this point level, but then again, if you have an amazing model for it, then you should be able to bring it, right? So I think fluff-wise, well, everything is mounted. That is quite a cool concept of going all cavalry. He could have squeezed in a 3rd mage and made the Star Dragon a bit smaller, so there's definitely more competitive builds, I would say. I would rate it as a 4 out of 10 as well, because it is going to die horribly to 5 fanatics, for example, I think. Then we have Jakob with the Kingdom of Bretonnia. This is a lot of stuff. So we have a Duke on a Royal Pegasus. We have a Paladin BSB. We have a Paladin just with a questing vow. I think this guy is... oh no, he's also mounted. Then we have 2 units of Bowmen, unit of Mounted Knights of the Realm, questing Knights, Pegasus. All kinds of different stuff, no obvious overpowered builds, so I would say 8 out of 10 for the fluffiness. Then we go to Jens. Jens has brought dwarves. He has the Anvil of Doom. I have seen some discussions on this saying that this is the best piece in the dwarven list, but I have no clue. Attain on shield bearers, which I personally do rate as very good upgrade. Some dwarf warriors with great weapon, with veterans for the reroll. Quarrelers with great weapons, rangers with great weapons. 3 single gyrocopters, 16 hammerers, which are really good in this rule set, and a gyro bomber. I would say that this is the most competitive so far, so I would give it a 3 out of 10. But that, I mean, it doesn't mean that it's bad. I think, like, it's not a bad thing that you bring a list that we would currently regard as competitive to Bloodstorm. That is something that I would have to say here, because it's also nobody knows what the power level is going to be at a Bloodstorm event. And there's always going to be outliers to either side. So generally, I expect this list to be winning more games than losing, but even then the matchups can totally change any of this. Then we have the Beastman Bravehearts with Johan. Johan has a level 4 on Demonology, level 2 on Elementalism. He has a wide variety of different units here. He has 2 big monsters, but then what are you gonna otherwise bring with Beasthood? So I would say that's a very fluffy list. 9 out of 10, most fluffy so far. Take it away, Johan. We have Jos with Night Goblins. So Jos has a level 4 with Lore Familiar, so he can choose Warballs on a giant cave squig with Trollhide trousers, which is one of the best items in the book. Wallapas one with Wunda, which is the other. A Ruby Ring of Ruin BSB, making him very point efficient. Then he has 3 Fanatics in the first unit, 3 Fanatics in the second unit, max Squig Hoppers, a unit of Stone Trolls with great weapons, a Giant and a Mangler Squig. So I would rate this probably lower than the one with the 5 Fanatics. So I would, maybe I have a personal hate against Fanatics, but I would go for 3 or 4 out of, I would go for 4 out of 10. Yeah. Or 3 out of 10 maybe. Then we have Glass Harm. So Glass Harm has a bit of a different type of list. He has a Runesmith with plate armor and shield. I think this guy is going to go in one unit of the Rangers to give them extra AP. He has minimum sized units of non-skirmishers. So he has 4 units that are not really worth it to chase them, but they will do some stuff on the battlefield. He has 11 Rangers and 10 Rangers, which I think is one of the best choices in Dwarves, because you don't suffer from your own models intervening in line of sight. Then you have a Bolt Thrower with the Master Rune of Disguise and a Rune of Scouring, going to a higher strength, I think, and Scouting or something, and 2 units of 4 Gyrocopters and an Organ Gun. I think if you want to build a competitive list at Dwarves, at 1500 points, this is what you take. So yeah, 2 out of 10, and it's if it's not performing well, then we can have a discussion about how that went bad at your games. But I think this is the most competitive list out of all of these. I think it's also geared towards being competitive with these minimized units. The tricks with the Rangers, I think, Gyrocopters that are in a really sweet spot currently, that are limited to only 3 units, but you get a workaround with 4 Gyrocopters in one slot. But maybe I'm completely wrong, and please show me how I am completely wrong here. Then we have Lars with Voice of Chaos. So Lars is bringing a Demon Prince without any magic, I think. Exalted Sorcerer level 2. So Lars is the organizer of the event, and he always pays quite a lot of attention to just bringing a balanced list, really, or at least not a very competitive one. And I think this is also the case here. So he has some Chaos Knights. He doesn't even give them lances. I think you have to buy them now, but he didn't. He can finally put down his Marauders with flails, so I'm really happy for him. 2 units of Chaos Warhounds with the very, very nice poison attacks upgrade that costs you some points but doesn't really do anything. Then some Chaos Warriors, which are arguably the worst choice in the book, but you want to take them for lore purposes. And some Chaos Ogres. He has specifically some models I know that are going to be these guys. So I think Lars actually deserves a 10 out of 10 for a fluffy list here, with also every unit that has access to a mark having the Mark of Nurgle. And then the Warhounds fit in there with their poison attacks. So I think this is a 10 out of 10 for fluffiness, and we'll see how it does on the table now. Then we have Mott with Orcs and Goblins. So Mott has a level 4 on a Ragnarok with a 5-up ward save. We have a BSB on a Gigantic Spider. We have a Night Goblin Big Boss on a Giant Cave Squig. We have some Night Goblins, 10 Night Goblins with 3 Fanatics. Oh my god, your ratio is a bit off here, Matt, but you know that as well as I do. Then we have 8 Squigs, 8 Squig Herders. I have no idea how this balance normally should be, but Bolt Thrower, some Squig Hobblers, a Pump Wagon, Doom Diver, and a Mangler Squig. It's all just very small rubbish that is going to be thrown at you. Yeah, compared to model list, I see that you withheld yourself from bringing max fanatics, and that is something that I have to applaud you for. It's still a lot of shit, but I mean, from the goblin side, probably you'll also have the feeling like you can't put a dent in anything because you don't have any big units that can deal with anything. So it's a weird list in that sense. Like Dread Elves is gonna run, or Dark Elves are gonna run away from this and go like, no, my god, this is terrible for me. While some of the armies will not really care that much. So I think this is a difficult one. I would rate it just perfectly in the middle for Bloodstorm, I think. So 5 out of 10 that should be. I might range it 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. 6 out of 10. Then we go to Orcs. So we have a Wyvern with the Trollhide trousers and the Giant Blade. We have a level 4 Oddnob. We have the Wallapass, 1 hit, 1 die on a Giant Cavesquake. These are kind of patterns that you see back, right? Then we have Black Orcs. They are stubborn. They have 7 shields between them so that the rest of the unit can strike with their great weapons. We have 19 Night Goblins with 3 Fanatics. We have 6 Squeaks. We have 8 Squeak Hoppers. Low score, I would say 3 out of 10. Then we have Lizardman Nick, we have a Slant Mage Priest, we have 3 Sour Scar Veterans on Cold Ones, Horned Ones, with a Giant Shield. We have 3 times 10 Skink Skirmishers, twice the Saurus Warriors, and once an Ancient Stegodon. Yeah, I think this is more or less what you would take with this setup. Is what you always take now with Lizardman, I guess, and the Mage Priest as well. Then the discussion is about whether you think the Saurus Scar Veterans are fluffy or whether it's something that's breaking the rules in some way. Or I also don't know if its intent is to run them in the Saurus Warriors, which currently you can do. The only thing I know is we went to Leida last weekend and then he was really disappointed with how these performed. So they might be quite scary on paper maybe, but in the end I think it will be all fine. So yeah, 5 out of 10. It's a creative build, so 5 out of 10 means that you're right in the middle of the pack of trying to get something that actually works on the table and going really fluffy, which is nice, but you end up with a situation like last where basically you just sacrifice everything to get into the fluffy zone. So yeah, 5 out of 10. I would just say it's a good list for Bloodstorm. Then we have Nick. Nick has a Master Necromancer. I talked with Nick a little bit about this list. So this guy is ethereal, the Tomb Banshees are ethereal, the Spirit Hosts are ethereal, and the Hex Rates are ethereal. I believe I advised him to just swap out the Spirit Hosts for Ghasts, but they didn't make the cut in the end. I think it's a very good response to a lot of Fanatics, because this stuff cannot be hurt by Fanatics. Rust doesn't really care that much. Whether it's going to lead to very enjoyable games for both parties, that is the question. I have played an Ethereal army for some time in 8th edition. It was a gimmick, so it was funny for like 1 or 2 rounds, and then after you were like, yeah, okay, I can either do something or I cannot do anything at all. So yeah, I would have gone for the Ghasts, but that would be my advice. I would put it at a 4 out of 10 because of the really extreme. So 5 out of 10 is our goal here, right? So then we go to Paul with Warriors of Chaos, Demon Prince on Demonology level 3, Chaos Marauders with the Mark of Khorne. I think he's going to be disappointed with how good these are, because you do start Frenzy, your charge range is quite minimal. You will probably get charged, your front rank gets wiped, you will lose combat, you lose frenzy. So you only have the downsides from frenzy basically. Case Warhounds, Forsaken, and then we have some more support stuff. The list does remind me of mine, however it's a bit more traditional in the sense that you have 3 Dragon Ogres, 3 Chaos Bonds. I think it's a good list. I think I would put this in the 5 out of or 6 out of 10. So a little bit to the fluffy side, but yeah, just a good list for the event. Yeah. Then we go to Peter with High Elves. So he has a Wizard level 4. He has a Noble BSB on a Griffin, then he has a Noble on a Phoenix. He has some Lutheran Sea Guard, some Swordmasters, and some Bolt Throwers. So yeah, you could argue that having a Griffin and a Phoenix and a level 4 is quite a decent setup. I would agree here, however the rest of the list I think doesn't really work that well with the rest. So the first part of this list is very mobile and it would be very difficult to catch. However, these models together, they can't really do the entire thing that the army wants to do, and the rest is really like laid back and hanging back. So I think it would be quite easy to play a neutral game against this by just hanging back and not really engaging. But I might also just be quite wrong there. He doesn't have, or at least I don't see, like Talisman of Protection, Seed of Rebirth everywhere to get 5+ regeneration and a 5 up ward save on these models. So if Peter has amazing models for this that you really wanted to put on the table, then I think it is still quite a decent list to bring. That it's definitely a little bit more on the power side than on the fluffy side, I think. So I would give it, like ideal 5 out of 10, I would give it a 4 out of 10. Then we go to Peter Jan with Skaven. So he has a Great Seer level 4 on a Screaming Bell. He has a Skaven Chieftain BSB without any equipment, Warlock Engineer without any equipment, Clan Rats with some Rattling Guns, Storm Vermin with a Doom Flayer, and Gutter Runners with Poison Attacks and a Doom Wheel. I have no idea about the power level of Skaven in general, so I don't really know what the weapon teams, for example, do. However, if I look at this list, then I see 3 big blocks of infantry, and I haven't seen yet what the value is of infantry in Warhammer the Old World over units that can actually do some combat damage. Because like the Clan Rats, they just have 1 attack each, I assume, and they have pretty bad stats, so they won't even be able to strike most of the time. Don't have any armor, or at least meaningful armor, so I would say that this is basically a tax that you pay rather than something that you really want. I think this goes more towards the fluffy side, so I would score it an 8 or a 9 out of 10, in the sense that you could amp up the power level of this list quite a bit. We have Rosalie with Dark Elves, so a High Beastmaster on a Manticore with the Blood Armor and the Pendant of Kayla. Death Hack, Rune of Cain, Ogre Blade, Supreme Sorcerers, Wizard level 4, Tome of Fury, and 20 Witch Elves with the Banner of Harganeth. So this part of the list, without the Dark Riders, is exactly what I played at the event in Leiden for a competitive list. And then there's a Gold One Chariot, Executioners, and Harpies. I would call this a competitive list. So I would score it a 4 out of 10. So I would say it's a similar power level as the Double Dragon High Elf Realms. Except, yeah, it's maybe a bit more tactical. But the Wizard level 4 Demonology also gives you Spectral Steed, which really pairs well into the Witch Elves and the Executioners. This is a surprising killy list, I think, which can perform really well. Dice with Chaos Dwarfs, we have a Sorcerer, Prophet, General, Wizard level 4 Elementalism with a Dark Forged weapon. Armor of Silvered Steel is a 3-up armor that you just get anyway, so that is... I don't know how this works with Chaos Dwarfs. I think their sorcerers can wear armor and cast spells at the same time, if I'm right. Silvered Steel, 3 armor is nice. Twice Mantle of Stone to give you twice +1 toughness on a build Taurus. So I think that combines to give you a guy with toughness 8. At that point, I guess you're at the level where it's mostly just fluffy rather than useful, because most things in the game don't go higher than strength 5 anyway, so you're gonna need 6s to wound this guy, but then again, strength 3... Can you still wound this with strength 3? That is a big question, I think. Because strength, if you're unable to wound this character with strength 3, strength 1 can't wound toughness 7, I believe. So then you could still wound it. That's fine, I guess. If you can't wound it, then the second Mantle of Stone was definitely not needed. Black Orc Big Boss with the BSB, 5 Black Orcs. Don't know why you would take 5 Black Orcs, but just to be able to bring the BSB, you have to bring a unit of Black Orcs, so maybe that is why. Then you could also have brought a Vizier. I don't understand this choice, but it's a random choice that is probably something Dice wanted to try out, and yeah, kudos to that. 20 Cutthroats, 10 Infernal Guard with some Blunderbusses, 5 Infernal Guard with some Fireglaves. He has a regimental unit of Infernal Ironsworn, which is one guy, I guess. I have no idea where this list is going, and I like it. 3 Bull Centaurs, 12 Ironsworn with a detachment of 2 Infernal Guard. This is just a random collection of infantry models. I like that he didn't bring the Iron Demon. I like that he didn't bring any War Machine for some reason, even though the War Machines don't seem necessarily that good. So yeah, question is whether this guy is worth it or not. I think it's a nice and creative list. I'm really intrigued by this one. So I would say power level wise, it feels a little bit less powerful than the average Bloodstorm list, so I'll go for 7. The Tom with the Ogre Kingdoms, we have a Slaughtermaster with the Giant Breaker and the Ogre Blade. Don't know if an Ogre Blade makes sense. I mean, I know what you did here. You're playing Ogres, you need an Ogre Blade on your General. That makes sense. Don't know if it is quite functional on a Slaughtermaster, or at least if it gives you big advantages. A Bruiser with Death Cheater, which in 9 days is an item that gives you regeneration, but here it might not be. I don't know what else this stuff does. So then we have Iron Guns. I think Ogres in general are in a good spot in Old World, to be honest. Then we have Bulls, Sabertusk, Iron Blaster. I don't know what kind of opinion to have on this. I mean, it's just a solid list, I think. You don't have that much shooting. You do have the setup of just having punchy stuff with some dedicated chaff. I think this is basically what you could expect from a ogre list if you try to still make it a little bit casual. So yeah, I would say I really don't know. So I think it's a 5 out of 10, just perfect spot. Because on one side I think it feels like a fluffy list. On the other side, it might work quite effectively in Old World, but I just don't know. With Tomb Kings. So every time I see Tomb Kings now, the first thing that I do is check if it is the beginner box. So Tomb Prince, yes. Royal Herald, I believe so. High Priest on Bone Dragon, yes. Necrotactus extra. Skeleton Skirmishers twice, yes. 20 Warriors, yes. 20 Tomb Guard, yes. You don't miss anything from the box. So you missed the Chariots. So you didn't include the Chariots, but otherwise it's a starting box, and then we probably had some models left. So yeah, I would say fluffy list. Yeah, like Tomb Kings also have the Armor of Destiny, right? So, which is definitely the better option of running your Bone Dragon. So High Priest on a Bone Dragon, I think that is the fluffy option. Stuff like characters with just bare equipment, don't know if they really add that much, because they add like 3 strength 4 or strength 5 attacks to your unit, which arguably is good, but increasing the price of your Tomb Guard by a factor half, like by putting in the Tomb Prince, that is your general, that's another 300 points if you kill the Tomb Guard, or the Skeleton Warriors if it goes in there. That's just not worth it. But then again, what are you gonna otherwise do? I think it's. I would have said that. Well, this is definitely really fluffy. This is less fluffy. So I would put it at a 6 out of 10, leaning towards the fluffy side. And then that is going to be it. So, in conclusion, my choices for least fluffy lists and most competitive lists would be the auction. There was one auction goblins list with the 6 fanatics, and well, there was anyway. This okay. This one from Mules, then the class harm list, definitely. I think those are the 2 most competitive lists, or most competitively oriented. Yeah, and then for the most fluffy, I would say Paul with Warriors. There was an Orcs, I think this one. No. Mod was better, but it was confusing. Lux was also quite fluffy. So I think that is a couple of examples of what. Oh, and Johan was also quite fluffy, I think. So yeah, mostly just to give you an overview of what I would consider the most fluffy or more fluffy and less fluffy list. It's quite. There's been a lot of kerfuffle about this list with the Star Dragon, but I think it's fine. I think it's there's no Seed of Rebirth on this guy. This guy is also 450 points. It's not gonna do that much if you know how to deal with it a bit. Yeah. So yeah, that it's gonna be a preview of the lists. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you either at the event or I will see you in the comments. Discussing what we have seen. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you then next time.